There was really swirling speculation earlier this week just around whether the governing coalition in Israel could even be held together amidst the internal pushback from the defense minister and the prime minister's eventual, pause on the controversial legislative overhaul. But eventually, after talks with the prime minister, one of the staunchest critics of any delay, National Security Minister Ben-Gvir, announced that he had agreed to back Netanyahu's pause, but in exchange for a promise to create his long-sought so-called National Guard. Now, the announcement came after Ben-Gvir even reportedly threatened to quit the government if Netanyahu actually threw away the overhaul. But to go to the source here, we're happy to be joined by Yishai Fleischer, advisor to Israel's National Security Minister Ben-Gvir. Yishai, we love having you on the show. To be honest, you give some good, clear-eyed, answers to some of the toughest, issues we're facing here. And I want to bring up Ben-Gvir now. Obviously, you're close to him. I recall, closely watching, his campaigning ahead of elections. It was all about restoring security, order, fighting terrorism. I don't recall this judicial overhaul as a big talking point. Why is this reform package now so important to him that he'd even, walk away from his greatest seat of power, willing to quit over it?
David, I think that, first thing, thanks for having me on. I think that indeed, this has not been the major part of the Ben-Gvir package that he offered at elections, but it was part of the broader ticket. Remember, it was also together with the Religious Zionist Party of Bezalel Smotrich. And we all understand that so many things that we want to do in the country are thrown away by the Supreme Court. For example, terrorist homes that, we've caught a terrorist or a terrorist, committed an act and has been killed. We want to destroy their house as part of the deterrence. The organization that stops us from moving forward is the Supreme Court a lot of times. So they hurt the deterrence of Israel. So that was, how that connected to the Ben-Gvir platform. But the bottom line is, in fact, the political reality on the ground is that Minister Ben-Gvir did not quit the government, and he extracted the concession of something that he really did want, which is more security for Israelis through this National Guard.
Look, I want to talk about that as well. I mean, he circulated circulated a letter to the media, signed by Netanyahu, where the prime minister vowed to raise this issue, I think, in the coming Sunday's security cabinet meeting, the cabinet meeting this Sunday. Look, is this National Guard formation, is it a must? Is it a red line for Ben-Gvir?
Let's talk about what we're trying to achieve here. There's the politics of it, but then there's the practical stuff that the average Israeli needs. And the reason people voted for Ben-Gvir, by the way, they voted for Ben-Gvir Smotrich. They voted more than they did for Benny Gantz, right? So that's the third biggest party in Israel and got over 500,000 votes. The reason it did is because people in regular life feel that their security has been compromised. And we saw that especially in the May 2021 riots. We now call it the Guardian on the Walls operation. But basically, we saw that in the mixed Israeli-Arab cities, there was violence. Do you know how many synagogues, David, were burnt during those riots? 10 synagogues burnt down. And nobody knows that. Imagine if one mosque would have burnt down. Not that I'm recommending that, God forbid. I'm saying, imagine what would have happened. It would have had a name, and it would have been all over American campus and all over media. It would have been called this or that, the famous burning down. But 10 synagogues were burnt. And Israelis living in places like Ramla Lud, and I've spoken to them myself, felt that the police was unable to guard them, protect their personal security, protect their property, their synagogues, their homes. So what Minister Ben-Gvir has wanted to do is create this National Guard, which would specifically deal with these kind of cases, with the cases of people being bullied in the mixed Israeli-Arab cities, or with things like the agricultural terrorism.
Yishai, I have to bring it up, though.
Of our farmers face.
Look, I mean, this isn't, I have to say, Ben-Gvir, he's not your average citizen here, okay? He's got a record of antagonism. Call it run-ins with the law in his past. He has a perception among the wider public that has many worried. Why does Ben-Gvir need his own police force? What's wrong with the current police that he already has some authority over?
Let's not succumb to the hype. This is not his police force. It's the Minister of National Security, who tomorrow, might be somebody else. It's something that the Bennett government wanted to push forward. They called it the Israeli Guard. They called it. They had a different name for it. They just simply didn't roll it out fully. But they had the same idea. It's something that we all know. Forget Itamar Ben-Gvir, the person. This is much more about the farmer who doesn't have a name right now on this program, and he's the person that's being terrorized. Stuff is being stolen. Businesses pay there's some 40% of businesses in Israel pay protection money, David, protection money to protection rackets, Bedouins, etc. Like that is just something that has to stop. And so there needs to be a type of force that's not exactly a police force, it's not a border patrol. It's something that is much more tied into the citizenry. In America, they have different versions of this thing as well. Neighborhood watches and that kind of thing, where people are just going to be much more aware of the crime that's happening in their daily life. Not the kind of crime that you could call police and say, this guy stole something, but a bullying, protection rackets, agricultural terrorism, and certainly the crazy riots that we faced in 2021. That's what this is about. Itamar Ben-Gvir may be contentious in some people's minds. In other people's minds, he's a great civil rights lawyer who's argued many, many cases in front of the Supreme Court, really fighting for people's personal security and civil rights. And he wants that for the people. From as being close to him, I could tell you, he really wants to give the people what the people asked him to do, empowered him to do, gave him the mandate to do, which is to restore their security. That's really his goal. He went into the toughest ministry. There's no doubt about it that the Internal Security, National Security Ministry is considered the toughest ministry to go into. And yet he wanted that ministry in order to effectuate it for the good of the average citizen. By the way, and as he wrote in Newsweek, it's not just for Jews. There are many Arabs who are terrorized by the jihad, and they are victims of the jihad. And something that would give them a way to crack down. Arab mayors, be able to crack down on the maybe 400,000 illegal weapons in Arab towns. This is part of that as well. Really, anybody who wants to cooperate with Israel and to be safe from terrorism and from bullying on the day-to-day basis will benefit from this new security force.
Well, there's no question he got the mandate, he got the votes, and I think it even came down to some 1 out of 5 uniformed IDF soldiers voting for him as well. So, and the party. Right. So, there is backing there. Appreciate your time with us, Yishai Fleischer. We'll stay tuned on the latest.
Thank you, David.